Hello, everyone. We are going to get started in just a second, but let me know that you can hear me. So if you can hear me, just go to the chat and say, hey, yes, how you doing? I know you can't see me. You're going to be able to see me soon. Don't you worry. But if you can hear me, just say something in the chat. Thank you, baby. So I'm gonna go get my tea because if you can hear, it's whistling. And we're gonna talk all about this Mercury and retrograde stuff. So I'll see you in just a second. I know you can only hear me right now, but I gotta get this tea. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So we're nice, we're comfy, we're cozy, and we are going to get started in a second. You will be able to see me in just a second. Child, just trying to get myself together. Okay, let me start this. Hey, everybody, how are you? What you up to? What you been doing? And what's going on? I'm going to be checking the chat because I love to hear what you're up to. And also checking in, go ahead and take some time to just reflect on how this Mercury in retrograde is going. Technically, it starts tomorrow. It starts tomorrow at 7:47 EST. And so of course you would convert that to whatever your particular time is. Let me make sure the mic is on. Your particular time is, and that is when the ish will hit the fan. A lot. With a girl and her partner this weekend feeling gay feelings. That is so cute. I'm so happy y'all had a nice date, group date. Isn't that cute? How 2022 of us. So precious. Okay. So that's a positive. That's always positive. I'm hearing only good things. But be mindful. Let me not say but, because I'm the type of person where even if the message is a deep message and like maybe tough, I kind of feel like everything is purposeful. So I try to use my words very, I don't know, lightly or with precision, because it is not to freak anybody out. It is more just to have a conversation and to see the opportunity. So there's going to be a couple of things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about specifically this Mercury in retrograde in Gemini, okay? And just because we're in Taurus season does not mean Mercury is in Taurus. Because just like all the other planets, they're in their own sign. But Mercury being closer to us than, for example, something like Uranus, it'll be closer to what the other signs are for these planets that are closer to us right now. So it will go into retrograde. It is already in Gemini. Mercury is already in Gemini. And then it will come out of retrograde in Taurus. So Mercury goes into retrograde in Gemini from May 10th, and it will go direct June 3rd. And when it goes direct, it will be in Taurus. So we're going to talk about what does Mercury mean in Gemini, what does Mercury mean in Taurus, what's going on with Jupiter, yes. What's going on with Jupiter? And we're going to pull cards too. So, trying to get a feeling right now. Feel free to add to the chat how this pre-shadow period has been going. The pre-shadow period is always about a week or so before Mercury goes into retrograde. And there's a post-shadow period as well, which is about a week after. And so it is a buildup. Nothing happens just like boom. It's more like this kind of gradual buildup. It's kind of like, you ever know when someone is being sneaky and before they do the sneaky thing, like you knew it, you had that feeling. That's a pre-shadow. That's the post-shadow period. It's that, building up momentum and, all that kind of stuff. So what do we have? Let's do some cinnamon. Let's do some cinnamon cleansing. I got my tea, so I'm good here. So I'm going to put that over here and just take a couple breaths, enjoy life. There's so many things that retrograde periods remind us of. It is not scary. Inconvenient, yes. Scary, no. But what it does is it actually gives us an opportunity to take inventory of the things that need to change in our life. So just breathe that in. This is cinnamon. And let it go, because baby, we will hold on to a whole lot for a long time just because, okay? But we need retrogrades to kind of get us back on course. Oh yes, baby. The pre-shadow period. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, I'm reading the chat, y'all. So feel free to, add to the chat there. Yes, completely yes. I can't even put it into words because Mercury rules the planet. Mercury rules the sign, sorry. Mercury is the planet, but Mercury rules the sign Gemini and Virgo. Always has. It is the modern day ruler and the traditional ruler. And Mercury is communication. And we know that Gemini, which it is in, which it also rules, is about communication. So I haven't even been able to put into words what this pre-shadow period has been doing. Hot mess. Hot mess. Okay. Putting that to the side. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. Just bring a little bit of Reiki healing hope in here. Inhale, exhale. Just inhale and exhale. And we just gonna boom, boom. Shake it off. Just shake it off. That's too hot for me to drink. I'm not gonna drink that. So kind of getting a feeling here. What are we feeling? Because that's gonna help me choose what deck we're going to use. Grandma, what deck should I use? Ooh, this one. She's saying a funny one. I want to use a deck that I don't typically use all of the time. Let me see. Ooh, I haven't used this deck in a long time. But y'all love this deck. This was a fan favorite for a long time. The Modern Witch. So we have the Modern Witch, Light Seer Tarot. And then we have the Fortune Queens. And this is the second deck. I actually have the first deck too. So in case you wanted to know. Okay. Whew. I'm getting a lot. I'm getting a lot. So usually I start with the cards already shuffling, but it's a lot. It's a lot coming in. And maybe that's the retrograde part too. Not part 2, but like not part TWO, but part 2, like TOO. And yes. Put this to the side. Y'all energy is strong today. Whew, whew, whew. So while I'm getting this together, we're going to... I knew I should have wrote this down. Like, remember to talk about these things. Anyway, so already talked about the fact that Mercury is going retrograde tomorrow, May 10th, 7:47 EST. With it going retrograde, it is going retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So Mercury in Gemini is almost the purest form of Mercury. When Mercury is in any other sign, minus Virgo, it takes on slight alterations to what Mercury represents. But Mercury in Gemini represents the purest form. The purest form of that energy. So I'm just going to start by channeling, okay? And feel free to channel with me. Whew, thank you, universe. I got to channel because y'all energy is very strong. And I think a lot is coming up right now too. Thank you, universe, for the opportunity to read on behalf of you. Please bring these messages in clear and concise ways. Bring messages of health, wealth, abundance, understanding, peace, and clarity. I say all of this in the name of I am, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Also, whenever there are things in retrograde, so we were just talking about Mercury being the planet of communication, Gemini representing a big part of communication. When someone has, and I notice this when I look at natal charts, when someone has a Mercury retrograde in their natal chart, so how the planets were when you were born, they are typically clairvoyant or psychic or mediums or something like that, because this is actually a very potent time to be able to communicate underneath the veil. So all your spirit guides, you know, all your ancestors, all your energetic helpers, being able to communicate, things like that. This is the perfect time for that because our ability to communicate is flipped inside out. So communicating on the outside is much more difficult, but communicating on the inside or underneath the veil is going to be so easy and so simple. And I actually feel like that's probably the energy that's coming through. Like, hey, blah, 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 you know. But y'all know energy. Okay? Don't wear me down too much. Okay. So we have the Six of Swords in reverse. So there is this sense, let me see. I want you to be able to see this card. There is this feeling right now of needing to, or the work that you need to do since it's in reverse. The work that you need to do is learning how to walk away from something you put too much effort into. I'm going to say that one more time. You have to work on walking away from something you put too much effort into. My favorite example would be something like a relationship. Some people feel like, oh, they love somebody so much and they just been through all of this drama with that person and they just can't walk away because you've been together for so long, right? This is a time to think about, and this is just one example, relationship. I'm going to get into other examples too. This is just an example to say, hey, there is no way to recover all that you have invested in this person or the situation or whatever. Time to walk away. Just time to, you know, your pride's going to be hurt, but it's time to walk away. It can also just be a mentality, because anything that shows up in our life, where it's love, family, friends, work, our community, our interactions with others, it really is just a sign of an energy that we have going on underneath the surface, a habit, a mindset. So really what it's saying is, regardless of how it is showing up in your life, it is time to let it go. And that's what's going to be so difficult. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Jupiter too, and how Jupiter is going to really nag on this. Because when you're doing this work of like, okay, I think I need to let this thing go, right? And it doesn't even have to be a person. It can be an internal thing, because Mercury in Gemini The way that I interpret it is what you think about yourself. Think about it like this. It is your identity, but it's not like what you look like, which would be kind of like an Aries kind of thing, you know? It's not what you have, which would be more of like a Taurus thing, but it's how you see yourself. How do you see yourself? Do you think you're strong? Do you think you need this? Do you think you're not able to do this? Da, da, da. All these things that go on in our head that other people can't see. That is what you're working through now. But what's going to happen is that Jupiter right now is in Pisces, okay? Jupiter in Pisces loves it, loves it, loves it, loves it. Back in the day, Jupiter used to rule Pisces. Now Neptune rules Pisces, but back in the day, Jupiter used to rule Pisces. So it really is being able to learn how to believe in something big to make it happen. But Jupiter will be leaving Pisces and going into Aries. And Jupiter in Aries is a different energy. Jupiter in Aries is like, I want this big life now. And with Mercury in Gemini, you're working through who you are. Retrograde, so it's an internal reflection. This Jupiter going into Aries is like, I want to have this life now. So what you're going to notice is that during these couple of weeks, from May 10th to June 3rd, so the 3 weeks, is you're going to keep re-seeing your identity. Oh, I want to be this. I want to be that. Or this is how I see myself. But that Jupiter in Aries is going to be like, well, go get it. So here's the thing. Be very precise that you don't get up one day. You might have this revelation on a Tuesday. Think this is who you want to be. And start putting into motion that without this retrograde being over, because I guarantee by the following Tuesday, you're going to have more information and you're going to want to be someone else, or you're going to see yourself in a new way. And so that's what's going to be kind of like bumping up against each other. Now, depending on where it's falling in your life, and whenever someone says that, like where it's falling in your chart, it means like you got to take your rising sign and whatever, is whatever house, because your rising sign, your ascendant, that's your first house. Whatever house Gemini is, that's kind of the area of your life that it's going to be impacting. So for example, say your rising sign is Gemini, it's going to be your first house. So it's really a lot about your identity, a lot about who you are. And it will actually be a very external kind of change once you get out of this cycle. I kind of describe it as the Luna moth. Like if you ever see me pull the Luna moth, it's more of like a transformation, but it's not a butterfly transformation where it's like, look, they're growing. It's more of like you had to kind of pull through some really dark times or really get a sense of uncertainty, a lack of clarity to grow into something. And that's what came out on the other side of that. So these cards are so big. Universe, ancestors, energy, energetic helpers, all for our highest vibrational good. Is there any particular message that you want us to pay attention to right now? Anything that you want all of us who are in this moment to know? Queen of Cups. It is all about nurturing your emotions right now. There's going to be some information that comes up that is going to hurt your feelings. Lived experience. What themes that are coming up this year are reoccurring themes that you experienced last year in Mercury retrograde? Because last year, Mercury retrograde was around the same time, around the same signs. So the themes that you had to work through last year, Mercury is asking, hey, did you put in the work? Did you put in the work from this time last year to now? Because if you put in the work, you're going to be able to sit and reflect about the big picture. If you did not put in the work, it'll be another reminder of like, it's still not working. It's still not working. And if you see yourself as something like back to the relationship part. If you see a big part of your identity as being in a relationship with someone and it doesn't work, sometimes you may feel like what you're holding on to is the relationship. I'm specifically talking about this when it comes to Mercury in Gemini. You might feel like you're holding on to the relationship when in reality you're holding on to the identity of who you think you are. You are a person in this relationship, and it might be a big part of your identity. So understanding that you might have to go through some changes and some shifts in your identity of who you are and to grow and to expand. That is something that may come up. I'm talking directly to you, baby. I feel you. So I'm taking some time to look at the chat. Oh, it feels like self-destructive. I think that is the best way to put it, because when we cleanse out, when we let something go, it's the same thing as destroying something. I think it's just like a very nice, cutesy way of saying you're destroying something. But self-destruction can be very intentional. But usually we use it in a kind of saying of like someone is not being intentional of the changes they're making. So it's kind of like a self-destruct situation or a self-sabotage versus, you know, someone who is cleansing out and they're saying, I am willingly letting this go. But, you know, it's just the nuance of language. It can be used, you know, in the same kind of way. Yes, baby, I do sound very different without whispering. Originally, I thought I was gonna whisper on this channel too, and I'm just like, no, it's so difficult to make videos and whisper, because it's like you have to be so mindful. I know y'all don't care about this, but you have to be so mindful of like the sounds and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to get the message out there. I need to be full voiced here. But I'm told I have a nice voice. Hold on. I'm going to give you a real nice voice here. The messages that are coming across are very potent for this Mercury in retrograde period. So just know that all this information that comes up will illuminate us and point us forward in the direction that we need to go. See, I could do the nice voice too. Okay. Whew. So I'm feeling better now. I think that the energy has been like relaxing. They feel heard. 7 of Pentacles, working towards what you want. You know, that's going to be, I think, something that shows up towards the end, probably in June. Okay. I think the universe is happy that I kind of just like took that moment to get what needed to get out. Thank you, universe. Basically, I want you all to just be mindful of what's going to happen. Like tomorrow when Mercury goes into retrograde, what it's going to feel like is just things aren't working, you know? So you have to give it some time, meaning clear your day. Don't even go out and hang with nobody. Just clear your day. Because I guarantee the nothing that you are going to do is still going to take a long time to do it. The internet's going to be messed up. Email's going to be messed up. Any type of communication. People aren't going to understand you. You're not going to understand them. The ability to comprehend. And like I said, because Mercury is in Gemini, I mean, it is the purest form of like, travel, specifically short distance travel. Trash. It's going to be some trash. Short distance travel is going to be rough. So if you plan on making any kind of trips, expect setbacks, expect them trying to fix the road. Expect the light to be out. Expect there to be accidents. Expect there to be unforeseen weather. Expect everything that you possibly could expect. Expect the car to break down. Expect the bus. If you take public transportation, expect the bus to be delayed. Expect that you miss your bus. It's all that stuff. What are some other common things that happen? I think that's pretty much it. And with it being in Gemini, it's not taking on some weird other kind of tingy kind of thing. Like if it was in Aries, it would have a different kind of, like very combative, in communication. But because it's in Gemini, it's kind of the purest form. And that's the good thing about when planets are in its own sign. It really takes on this quality of like just naturally like, okay, it's really straightforward. So just communication in general. So be very, very, very careful of what you say. From May 10th to June 3rd, be very careful with what you say. Someone or something is going to irritate you, and you're going to say something very passionate, and you may feel like that's how you're going to feel indefinitely, but I guarantee by the end, you're going to feel different. And now you got to go on an apology tour, and now you got to face the consequences of things. Also, when it comes to signing contracts, a Mercury in retrograde situation is you don't sign contracts. Because what's going to happen during Mercury in retrograde is that the things that you have put off, they will come back up in your life. So you can't start new things because the old stuff is going to pop up even if you don't plan for it. And when you sign a contract or you start a new job during this time, unless it's a job that has been delayed for a long time, if you start a brand spanking new job, by the time you get out of this retrograde, the experience of the job is going to be very different. You're going to feel very different about it. So don't assume how you feel now about the job. Yep. Don't assume that how you feel now about the job is how it's going to be. Or making decisions like getting into a relationship with someone or moving somewhere. You want to think about it because it's kind of delayed. Like whatever you do, if you make a decision during these times for something new, something that has not come up in your life before, it eventually is going to create some like stress after you get out of this Mercury retrograde. And you're going to start to feel very like, just like over it. It's going to be the same old thing that you've been trying to get away from. And so you might feel right now like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get out of whatever it is. Like I said, it depends on, what's going on in your natal chart, which house it's in. But you might feel like I'm trying to move away from it. And right now in retrograde, it's going to feel different. But as soon as it goes direct, it'll feel funky again. So that's why you shouldn't make decisions right now. You should wait because you will literally feel different by the end of June. You may not think so. Or you may think you kind of like, oh, yeah. I have a, understanding. No. You're going to feel very different. And the conflict between Jupiter going into Aries and this Mercury in retrograde in Gemini and then ultimately Taurus is going to be something that creates a message that kind of pushes you forward in a new direction in your life. It's going to be a conflict. You're going to so badly want something, want to have this big whatever life or something. But yet your idea of yourself continues to change. But because Mercury will be in Taurus when it goes direct, and a Mercury in Taurus is very grounded, level-headed, you're going to get to a clear understanding of who you are. Gemini, in its nature, is very like boom, 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 a lot of sparks, right? It's a lot of ideas. It's not a commitment to an idea. It's just a lot of ideas. So your brain's going to be boop, 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 all over the place. But guarantee by the end of this retrograde, you're going to become very grounded in some understanding, depending on what's going on here. So I'm going to take just a couple of moments to probably explain it in the houses, because I know when I was kind of coming up and learning how to understand the planets, I never understood what people were talking about when they're like, it's transiting your fourth house, so you need to X, Y, and Z and da da da. Like it is important for me to make this as easy as possible for you to understand what's going on. So I'm gonna go through the houses, and But before I do that, let me just look at the chat, see what y'all are up to. Oh, did the work. Okay, so if you feel like you did the work, this will be a time of reflection. This will be a time of kind of like internal meditation, internal just self time, self love, space, things like that. Hey babies. Okay. If you tell yourself that, that's gonna happen. Oh no, why'd you take it? Why'd you take the message? I'm a Gemini rising and a Virgo moon, but this ain't affecting me. No, sir. If it's affecting anyone, it's going to affect you because Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So you're going to be impacted the most. A Virgo moon. The thing about Virgo is all about, it was actually, I said, I believe we are gods of our reality. Okay, so you're talking about co-creating. I got it. Virgo is all about the data, all about patterns. But when Mercury goes into retrograde, you're able to see patterns in a different way. You can't really see the patterns on the outside. You can see the patterns on the inside. That's why I was talking about like the Gemini Mercury in retrograde is like being able to be clairvoyant or psychic or being able to talk underneath the veil versus the Virgo retrograde, like Mercury energy is more of like seeing the internal patterns. And that's actually kind of more like your astrological opposite, which is Pisces, because Pisces energy, they'll be all over the place on the outside because they're focusing on the patterns on the inside, and that's how they kind of like understand that. So this will be a time where things will not make sense for people with strong Virgo placements. It will not make sense. It's not going to be as tough as when Mercury goes into retrograde in your sign this year later on. It's not going to be to that level, but it will be. It's not a very earthly quality in the way that we want to see patterns, because it's flipped inside out. So the good thing about a retrograde is it gives us time to look over everything and make sure it looks good. So say you're like a machine, okay? Or you have a machine, a computer, your phone or something. Yeah, your phone's going to be messed up too, everybody. But say you have your phone and the phone is or the computer, and the computer, you never turn it off, right? Your phone, never turn off the phone. When your phone or the computer needs to be reset, that is technically a retrograde, because what it's doing is it needs to turn off to turn back on, to take inventory, to make sure everything's working instead of just completing the task. Because a part of the path is there may have been some misfiring that happens, but maybe some other part of it's like, circuitry is kind of leaning in and doing the work. But when you turn it off, which is the retrograde, and turn it back on, then the computer has to spark everything again, and it will notice, oh, this is not working. And if that's not working, it'll tell you that, and then you have to go and fix it. That's what the retrograde is. It's not a negative thing. It is just a time to really go and just make sure you are a well-oiled machine. I don't want to say a machine but make sure that things are doing well, just, checking in with yourself. I do want to take a moment to really talk about how it will be impacting on like a esoteric level. But let me keep reading this. Oh, see, I'm telling you, look, it's already affecting me. Y'all gotta remind me. I'm gonna talk about the houses and the esoteric. So one of y'all keep the houses so I can remember to talk about it, and one of y'all the esoteric. But let me go back over here. Okay. Thanks for loving my voice. Ooh. Gemini sun, Sag moon, and Scorpio rising. Oh, I love that. I'm a Gemini sun and a Scorpio rising too. I'm a Libra moon. Hi. Oh, okay. So, okay, I'm going on another tangent again, but let me stop. I'm going to stop the tangent so we can get into the houses, how it's going to impact. Seven of Wands again. Okay, so the universe is coming across very strong to say it's like a warning, a very big warning that you need to pay attention to. And this warning is saying what you think is going to work out. If you start it now, eventually it will create a conflict. So just be patient. Just don't start any new stuff. Just only address the old stuff that's coming up in your life. And the universe, the card came out twice in reverse. It's the same message, it's the delayed conflict, because what happens when things go into retrograde, we try to supplement how we communicate with making ourselves feel better. Like, we may not be able to understand someone else. So instead, we go out of our way to do something that makes us feel better about not being able to understand them. Not realizing that sometimes it's okay just to be in conflict or just to have a sense of uncertainty. Maybe you're not beefing with anybody, but just having a sense of uncertainty, because the delayed gratification is at the end of the retrograde period, you'll then understand them. But if you don't do that, you might jump to conclusions and it creates an environment later on that actually doesn't work out for you. Okay, so now I can get into thank you, baby, for the houses. Yes, the houses. So let me get into the houses. So I talked a little bit about the first house. Now, why I'm talking about the houses is because Mercury retrograde in Gemini / Pisces is going to impact you differently based off of the house it's in. So wherever your Taurus and your Gemini is, that is the house that is really going to show up in your life. So how do you know the houses? Like I said before, your rising sign, also known as your ascendant, is your first house. And you can just calculate the houses after that. Now, there are different house systems. I'm going to make it super easy for you and just talk about it through the lens of whole sign houses, which makes your ascendant the first house, and whatever is the next sign will be the second house and things like that. But if you use a different house system, sometimes you have two houses that have the same sign. I'm going to keep it super simple, super easy for you. I promise you it's not going to be that big of a difference. So if you have Mercury in Gemini and it's in your first house, your rising sign is Gemini, it's going to really impact you. I mean, really, what you think of yourself, your identity. It's almost like you are going to take yourself out of the lens or the forefront of everyone, kind of be like a little bit of a hermit, work through whatever you need to work through. And then at the end of this retrograde period, June 3rd, that's when you reemerge, like I talked about earlier, like the Luna moth, and have some new insight about yourself, this new mentality about yourself, and how you think about yourself. You will then reflect it in how it looks on the outside and how you interact with others. So people are going to literally look at you or not just look at you, but interact with you and be like, oh, this is a different person. That's what it's going to feel like if you do what you need to do. I always assume people are doing what they need to do. The Emperor in reverse. This is all about mastering your life mastery. So that's the message for you, Gemini rising. Now, what's next? Taurus. So if you have, how do I want to do this? Because I'm like, I can go through and, I set myself up. That would be 104. Was that 12 times 12, 144 scenarios? Okay, I don't know why I set myself up like that. Okay, Let's just say it like this. If it's the first house, that's what's going on. Let's say that you have that Gemini in the second house, right? Gemini in the second house is all about your possessions. It's all about what you have, what you own. But it's not necessarily the big kind of stuff, but it's like your home, your car, your clothes, your worth, your money, things like that. What you have so that you can do stuff, so that you can have comfort in life. So you're going to have to go through a cleansing there. You're going to have a new outlook on money when you come out of this. So it might feel like money is a little bit tight. And so that would be someone, oh gosh, what is it? Taurus, Gemini. I guess Taurus would be the rising. And then Gemini would be the second. I should have really pull up a chart. Let me pull up the sign song so I don't confuse myself. Signs. You see the wheel. We get these glyphs. Okay. Whew. Jesus. So let me see. What was I just talking about? Taurus. So Gemini being in your second house would be about those possessions and stuff like that. And I think that's pretty normal for you. Yeah, first house. And then, yep, doing it right. Okay. That would be pretty normal for you, pretty natural to you, because the second house takes on similar qualities of Taurus energy. So this really is a cleansing of how you think of money. So say you have Gemini in the third house, which would make your rising sign Aries. The Gemini in the third house is very natural placement because the third house represents a lot of Gemini qualities. So this is a completely different way of communicating with others. So right now, the ability for you to communicate, you don't feel like you're being heard, or you not just not being heard, but you don't feel like your message is coming across in the way that you need it to come across. And this would be for people with Aries on the ascendant, Aries rising. So Gemini would be in your third house, and it doesn't come off the way that you want it to come off. So during this time, you're really going to take a step back and really change the way that you communicate. There's going to be a lot of growth there. So Gemini within the fourth house would make you a Pisces rising. Gemini in the fourth house is all about family. So it's going to be a lot that has to do with the communication within your family. So that's going to be a bit strained right now, whether that is your family of origin or your chosen family, or, the family that you have now. Typically, it shows up very, very certainly in your family of origin. But there's going to be, especially with the Pisces rising, it comes off like family secrets, things that weren't said or people didn't say. And then it kind of comes out right now in the group. And you have this kind of feeling of, it's two things. It's like you have this Knight of Cups feeling where you want to come in and you want to rescue people from their feelings, but or how that people feel, but you want to kind of put that to the side and don't worry about that. You need to separate yourself. The best thing you can do is separate yourself from your family at this time, because it will be emotionally difficult for you to have to go through that kind of stuff. So that's when you have Mercury in Gemini in retrograde in the fourth house. That makes you a Pisces rising sign. If you have Mercury in the fifth house in Gemini, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would make you Aquarius rising. So if you have Mercury and Gemini in the fifth house, there's been kind of a block of creativity. There really has been a block, or this spark of wanting, it's like you don't feel like you're able to create what the message that you want to put out there. sometimes it can reflect fertility kind of challenges. And very fascinating with this is that if you've struggled with these things in your life already, like for example, you might already have a Mercury in retrograde placement. Whenever Mercury goes into retrograde, it's always easier for you. It's just always easier because the rest of the world is now having to communicate in the way that you communicate naturally. So it's kind of like, it's because you already have built up, like, how to work through these things. If you've been dealing with, any of these themes, if you've been dealing with these themes for a long time, this is actually going to be a time of like, exhale, you take a breath out, because, now it's kind of showing up like, okay, well, this is the time to address this. You've done the work. So it's not going to be so much of a shock on you and things like that. But this creativity, these are for Aries rising. So it's going to be in your 5th house. It's all about the creativity, creation, all about how you spread and share your message, but it's also can be your judgment, having kind of a clouded judgment, or a judgment that just seems a little bit uncertain, and you're looking for some certainty, and you will find that groundedness. At the end, and it will show up in your house. By house, I mean home, like home life. Because Mercury will go into Taurus, and that'll be the house before the one that I'm talking about now. I can't do all those. I can't do all of those. I'm gonna just give you a little bit of that. So let's see. We did 5. I'm gonna do 6, and then I'm gonna see how you all are doing. So if it is in your 6th house, that means you are a rising sign Capricorn. So your 6th house has everything to do with work. That means you've already been feeling it. Work has been frustrating you. Work has been like, I want to say like pissing you off, but it's more of like there's been communication gaps at work. But I think that people typically expect foolery at work, so I think you're kind of better suited for that. But it's actually a really, really kind of interesting thing that's coming up for you. And this is for the Capricorn rising that has that Mercury in the 6th house. It's almost like people really need you. Like people are going to be asking, again, Knight of Cups, being able to say no, but like people are going to really be, the roles will be reversed. Like the power is supposed to be from the high up down, but you're going to be actually in a position like the communication, the power will come from those who are kind of from the bottom up. And so that's what's going to come during this time. And you might notice your leadership abilities really showcased during this time. So let me check in with y'all and see how it's going. You mean / Taurus? Yes. Mercury in Gemini / Taurus? Yeah. Because Mercury starts in Gemini. And then it will go into Taurus. Thank you. I'm taking notes. I appreciate you. Yes. Mercury retrograde affects Aquarius in 5th house. Yes, it does. I said / Pisces. I think I said / Pisces because I was talking about Pisces being the rising sign if Mercury is in the 4th house. So that's why I was talking about Pisces. I could have said it / Pisces, but I probably was referencing when I was saying Mercury, like if your rising sign is Pisces, Mercury would be in your 4th house. So like I was trying to explain for anybody who's new, I was trying to explain like when someone's like, oh, it's going to be in your 4th house or your 5th house, like what that actually means. So I was saying like if it's in your 5th house, we'll use Aquarius as an example. If it's in your 5th house, Mercury and Gemini in your 5th house, that means if you count back the signs, your 1st house or your rising sign will be Aquarius. So most people know, nowadays their rising sign, but they may not know off the top of their head what their 5th house is. So just trying to bridge the gap because I know that can be a little bit confusing from time to time. Okay, so y'all doing good. So I'm gonna keep going. Okay, keep going and keep flowing. Okay. So Sagittarius, it will be in your 7th house. So it's going to be all about the relationships. And let me tell you something, Sagittarius. You like freedom. You do. You're very free. You are our greatest example of freedom. But there's this feeling of being kind of just like bound in the relationship. You are in a bind here. You're not being able, the way you're communicating or communication is happening in these relationships, these close relationships, it's making you feel like very like suppressed. And so that might be like, I'm scratching myself out. So that might be a theme that shows up here. So there might be a tendency to want to flee and be like, okay, bye. Which is fine. You know, I can't tell you to not flee, but I will say, to be very straightforward with you, if you think it is better for you to remove yourself from a situation, don't come back. Literally, don't come back. Don't remove yourself from the situation when it's difficult and then try to come back when you perceive it to be easier. Because there will be a lot of resentment on the other side for whatever the thing is, and it just creates this cycle over and over again. If you feel like something is holding you tight and it's making you feel uncomfortable and you want to leave, be very certain that when you leave, you are not going to turn around and come back. And this is in your 7th house. If you do feel like you would come back, but it's just too much for you, you can take some separation from partnerships. That's good. And then make the decision after Mercury leaves retrograde. But you may need to make that separation, just being separate in the physical energy. But if you make a decision to go, do not come back. That's it. It just won't work out. It might feel good at first, but it's just going to go back into its same old thing. And so that's the Sagittarius energy, and that's in your 7th house. Mercury, this is how this Mercury in retrograde in Gemini is going to affect you. Let's see. This, I was going to make a point, but then I feel like, let's see. Scorpio. What is Gemini? Gemini is going to be in your 8th house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, Scorpio. Gemini is going to be in your 8th house. So Scorpio, rising. I was like, what am I trying to say? Scorpio rising. So Gemini is going to be in your 8th house. And that is all about kind of healing, a very conscious healing. That's all about loss. It's all about working through the traumas of life, growth, therapy, things like that. It is a bit of a slight natural energy here because the 8th house takes on qualities of Scorpio, just like the 2nd house. Like we talked about, you know, for those whose rising sign is Taurus and Gemini in the 2nd house, it took on those qualities. The same thing with Scorpio, because Taurus and Scorpio are astrological opposites. So they're going to have kind of like a similar kind of thing going on. But Scorpio, you know, Gemini being in the 8th house represents kind of Scorpio kind of things. And what's going to come up here is the communication or communicating with like therapy. Like, if that makes sense. What's really coming up is being able to communicate in mediumship. Like, that's actually the message that's coming across right now. Being able to communicate with your ancestors, those that have already gone. So if you have some type of practice in which you want to communicate with a loved one that has already gone, specifically maybe over a subject that really is plaguing you, something that has been bothering you for a long time, even if it is just communicating with your guides or the universe, this is actually the perfect time to do it. Like, this is a time where that ability is very amplified. It's also if you unfortunately have to deal with some type of family loss or just loss around you, that the communication is very confusing. So if there's something that you're losing or has to be let go or things like that, it's the communication surrounding it is really, really just confusing. And you won't receive that clarity on this until Mercury goes direct. So I think a general way to say it would be healing, your healing path. Maybe someone hurt you or something hurt you, or you're kind of going through realizing that you have maybe some trauma that needs to be healed. And this is a moment where it's like, if it's the first time for you to have these conversations, it may be a little bit confusing, maybe a little bit difficult. But if you've already been having these conversations, like I said to everybody else, every other sign, every other house, if these themes have already come up in your life, this will be a time of reflection. That it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to be as like, ugh. Like, it probably felt very, very strong last year. So all of these themes that came up last year, they coming up this year, and if you did the work that you needed to, it is a time of reflection. If you didn't, it's like Mercury's coming back around to say, like, did you do what you needed to do? So that's what's coming up for you, Scorpio. So you're healing, specifically you're healing. And it's specifically a love healing. So it's kind of like an ex friend, ex love, ex family, ex whatever. It's that kind of partnership. Less of the whole focus on the romance of it and more on the focus of the partnership. And the good thing about Scorpio energy is that Scorpio isn't afraid of being vulnerable. Scorpio isn't afraid of letting the energy of pain lay bare, because the Scorpio energy finds power in that. Oh, we can keep it real. We don't have to pretend like everything's okay. We can just be very honest, and Scorpio feels comfortable there. So being able to not have to pretend like everything's okay, being able to say like, hey, this really hurt me, or this really impacted me, that's going to be very freeing and healing for you. We have Libra, and you're going to have it in the 9th house. So rising sign Libra, Gemini is going to be in your 9th house. And so this is actually going to require you to think bigger. It's going to come up really in kind of like religious institutions. Like, you might find that your faith as a whole, or how you are trying to understand the universe, or why am I here? That's going to come into kind of conflict, because maybe if you're someone who never really thought about it before, or to this extent, it's going to feel like, well, what is this? Is there a God? Is there the right, religion? Is like, or maybe you think about it on like, well, why am I here? If it's less of a religious thing, it's more of like just a kind of like a big existential crisis. Like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What is my purpose here? That's what's coming across here. And it creates this sense of apathy within you. It's because there's a lack of clarity that won't show up until the end. And we know Libra energy doesn't like dissonance. It makes you kind of feel very melancholy of like, what's the point? What is the point? And the way that it might show up in your life is you might be noticing a lot of themes that you do not like happening. Maybe it's in communication. Maybe it's in what you're watching in the news. Maybe it's what you're seeing in your life, and you just don't like it. And you're like, what is the point? Why is this happening? And it really is giving you an opportunity to re-examine that area of your life, this, how we see ourselves in the big picture, and simplify it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be black or white either, because sometimes we try to look at the divine or the universe or, whatever is out there, and we try to kind of dumb it down so that it's like us, versus it having its own complex understanding, so that the way that we experience something might be very negative, but in the big scheme of things might have a different kind of purpose. Regardless, you're coming to whatever your understanding of that is. Virgo, this is going to be in your 10th house. So this is all about your career or your legacy, not your work, not your job. Your work or your job is going to be fine, but this is going to be a time where you start to really, Virgos, you start to think, what do I want? Like, who am I when it comes to my career? And there's a bit of uncertainty because you're very diligent. You work really, really hard at whatever you do. But working hard is not the same thing as working towards something. I'm going to say that again. Working hard is not the same thing as working towards something. And so you might have been feeling stagnant for a while. You might have been feeling like you've been having this kind of idea of like, what is my next? What am I supposed to be doing? You may not mind your job. Your job might be fine, but you might be feeling like, well, what should I be doing right now? And this time, especially towards the end of the retrograde, is going to give you what you need of like, this is the type of career I want to have. And it was Temperance in reverse. So this is saying like, just be very balanced here. Don't get upset. Don't get like frustrated or hard on yourself, because Virgos are very hard on themselves. So don't do any of that. What you want to do is you just want to take a step back, take your time. This is Virgo rising. Take your time, be patient. You're great with patience. And don't judge. That's going to be tough for you, but don't judge. And just wait until the retrograde ends. And that'll give you a lot of clarity on your legacy and the career that you have. Let me see. We have 2 more. I just want to check in with you all because I feel like I've been talking. Okay. Oh, your natal Mercury's in Gemini. So this is actually what I was talking. I'm glad you brought this up. I'm actually say what they put. This was so precious. I'm a Scorpio rising and my natal Mercury is in Gemini. I've always considered it in my 7th house. Could relate to both readings, but especially the 8th one. Loved it. So that's actually what I was talking about in the beginning when there are different house systems. So if you look at Placidus, or you look at Coke, or you look at another house system, those have a higher likelihood that you could have 2 houses in one sign. But when you use whole sign houses, that means every house has a sign. And so when you go and you do like an online natal calculator, its default setting is Placidus. And so it could come up in another house. And so that makes complete sense. And for anybody else who's confused, who like, I was like, Pisces, it's in your 4th house. And you're like, wait a minute, it's in my 3rd house, or it's in my 5th house. That's probably because, of the house system that you're using. And what you can do is you can just apply it to that house. Exactly. Thank you. I use Placidus. So my 11th and my 12th are both in Gemini. That's exactly the example. And the reason why people will use whole sign houses when it comes to transits instead of Placidus. Okay. So when I do natal charts, and I haven't forgotten the last 2, y'all. When I do natal charts, I'll use Coke for the house system, because I feel like it kind of really explains what's going on. The default is Placidus, which is similar, but the reason why people use whole sign houses for what we're talking about right now is called a transit, meaning how is the planet today impacting your original natal chart. The reason why people use whole sign houses is because if you tried to calculate a transit in like a Coke or a Placidus, it would be so much harder. Now, if you have the time to sit there and do it, that's fine. But what's going on here is that you have the planets in a particular sign, in a particular degree. That's not going to change. But the house moves. So having to go down to the nitty gritty, because let's say that something is in 29 degrees of something, that is a very different energy in one house versus another house and another sign and things like that. So they kind of do it as a way to make it very, very, make it easy to see how it impacts you. And the thing about it is that when you look at your natal chart, it makes sense to be very detailed and use a house system that's very detailed, because it's like a big picture of you. But when you're looking at a transit that's going to be over in 3 weeks, you don't have to be that detailed, because it's not going to last your entire lifetime. It's just going to be right then and there in the moment. But use it as you want, use it as you may. There's a lot of different techniques, but whole sign houses, they are predominantly found in Hellenistic astrologers. So those, Greek and Roman astrologers that come out of that lineage. They also don't really, they do modern ones, but they kind of stop at Saturn, like, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. A lot of these asteroids that we work with today, these are new phenomenons. Like, I feel like what Chiron was discovered in the 70s or the 80s, they're very new phenomenons. So some of the traditionalists, they don't even see that, because back in the day, the planets, all the way up to Saturn, they were assigned 2 signs minus the sun and the moon. But once these new planets were discovered, they were reassigned. So, Saturn had Aquarius taken away and it was given to Uranus. Jupiter had Neptune taken away and it was, Jupiter had Pisces taken away and it was given to Neptune. Mars had Scorpio taken away and it was given to Pluto. And so that's how these things have changed. It's okay. I know I went on like a a little ramble there, but I just wanted to explain because I know that can kind of be confusing too. Okay, for the last 2 signs, y'all was like, what? What in the world? That 4 of Cups coming up again. Oh, okay. The last 2 signs. We had Leo. So it is going to be in your 11th house. And we know that 11th house is all about your, we'll say friendships, but it's more of your network. Think about it like your social network. So what probably came across last year around this time for Leo energy is a lot of changing of your networks, changing of who you surround yourself by in order to have a better experience in life. Hold on. I've been talking. I know I just started. Now I got to drink. But yes, Leo, having those social networks, what's going to happen now is that you're going to find yourself needing to take a step back. The communication with the social networks, it might be a little off. And there's 2 paths. There's the path of you had this issue last year, you corrected it, and now you notice how you're able to maneuver during times where where the communication is not clear. If you didn't do what you needed to do last year, it's going to come up again and you're just going to be frustrated. You're tired of kind of not being heard in the way that you need to. And again, I'm going to reiterate this to every sign. The themes we talk about, if you've already worked on them, they will come across as like a reflection. If you haven't worked on them, it's going to make you work on them now. It's going to make you kind of take action into it now. So Leo, this is your time in your social network. So if you did everything that you needed to do with this theme that came up last year, this is actually a time, the 3 of Pentacles we have here for you. In reverse, which is kind of like this delay of wanting to start something, some type of craft or wanting to kind of get this kind of apprenticeship or be connected. Anyway, if you did what you needed to do, you will be rewarded by knowing the right people at the right time. Like come June, you're going to be connected with the right people, at the right time. And it's about community too, feeling like you want to be a part of a community, feeling like, what probably happened last year was kind of made you feel like you didn't know where you belonged. But now, and this is Leo rising sign, you didn't know where you belong. And because this is in your 11th house, instead, what it's making you feel is like, oh, I'm finally finding where I belong. So you finally have this sense of community, but it's going to go through a lot of the same patterns that you experienced last year at this time, and it will be reflected. And the cool thing about it is that if you did the work, the same kind of patterns last year will show up, but it will be handled much better, with the energy you have. If you didn't do the work, the same patterns will show up and it'll still be very frustrating for you. And so this is just an opportunity to validate whether or not, communication wise, the community you're in worked. And also, just like with all the other houses, old energy from previous energy before will try to pop up during this time. And if that energy tries to pop up during this time, just be, mindful of it. Does it work for you? Does it work for the community you need to be a part of? That you feel comfortable, that you feel valued and all that. And then we have our last sign, which is Cancer. And it is going to be in your 12th house, your deep desire, your deep motivation in life. How do you communicate with yourself? This is Cancer rising sign. How do you communicate to yourself how or what you think about what is important to you? I know that was like a little bit all over the place, but Pisces is very much so, or the 12th house, which represents Pisces qualities, is very much so underneath the veil. This is another one of them houses where if you have any type of esoteric or trying to amplify your mediumship or receive messages or clairvoyance, that it is really going to show up here. But this is kind of like your sense of believing in yourself, believing in humanity. You know that when things are in the 12th house, it's like it is believing in yourself and believing in humanity is the same thing. Yourself might be Aries, humanity or everyone around you might be Aquarius. But when it comes to the 12th house, kind of Pisces energy, that is everything. You are a reflection of the universe. The universe is a reflection of you. So it's all about your belief. Do you believe in yourself? Do you trust yourself? Cancer rising. Do you trust yourself? What is your communication with yourself on your trust? Do you feel like you are worthy to have the love you want, to have the life you want, to have the money you want, to have whatever it is that's coming up in your life? Do you feel like you are worthy? How you really feel and what you really think about yourself is also a reflection of how you think about others and how you feel like the universe thinks about you. All of these things will come up. And, this is not the first time. It came up last year. So you're just kind of revisiting it and seeing like, oh, okay, so is this how I feel? Like, it's a little bit of like, what is my purpose? But more of like a belief, like, I believe I can do anything. I believe, and this goes to that message of co-creating, like I believe because I want something, I can create it. And I think what I always try to be mindful of messages of co-creation is it's not about avoiding conflict, meaning like I co-create my reality, so I refuse to have conflict with anyone. Everything we experience is purposeful. If you heard how I started off, I said that Jupiter going into Aries will have a conflict with this Mercury and Gemini in retrograde. And this conflict together will illuminate something on your path. So even when you co-create in life, you don't have to micromanage the day-to-day outcomes or how you feel all the time. You are simply saying, this is where I want to go. Universe, take me in the direction. And you cannot judge where the universe takes you, because the universe might take you over here and you might perceive over here as real janky. And the universe might take you over there and you would prefer to stay over there. And then the universe takes you back here, but ultimately you might be zigzagging, but you're getting to wherever you need to go. That is what co-creation is. That is releasing judgment. 12th house energy, Cancer rising, is being non-judgmental on the path that you are being called to, that you feel like you are an expression of in the universe. Okay, y'all. Let me see what y'all was saying. Okay. How do the houses change with time? Do the natal risings change with time? There's a technique called chart progression. And what you do is basically every year, all the planets and the asteroids, they're moving at their own pace a little bit in a different direction, a little bit further than when you were born. So let's just take the sun. Every year it's going to move a degree. There's, 29 degrees when we look at a sign. You look at the natal chart, boom, there's a wheel, that one section, the 29 degree. The 30th degree is the 0 of the next sign. That means the sun, whatever degree it's in, if it's in 0 degrees Aquarius, if you go 30 years, the sun will technically be in Pisces, and that's called your progress chart. This is what somebody is asking right now. But say you were already in 29 degrees Aquarius, that means the next year, when you were 1, you would be in Pisces. So your progress chart gives a reflection of who you are now, or how your energy is now. And you can also look at the transits in your progress chart. The reason why that can be a little bit confusing or a little bit tough is, think about it like this. The first 10 to, let's say, 20 years of your life, depending on how old you are, you might be young. Okay. The first 10 to 20 years of your life, you will remember for a lifetime. Like, you will remember the difference between being like in elementary school and being in high school. There might be only a 4-year difference. But it is a totally different experience, and that's going to be cemented into the foundation of you. And a lot of times we go through therapy, or we, have these foundational ideas and principles about our life from those, beginning years of our lives. But I guarantee you, the older you get, 4 years starts to feel like that. It doesn't feel as a differential as, being in elementary school all the way to high school. So our original natal chart still takes on a very strong feeling in us, but we start to change and shift over time very slowly. Like, for example, Saturn will take forever. You're going to go through an entire lifetime and Saturn's probably still going to be in the same spot. So whatever your Saturn placement is pretty much going to stay there. But the other planets, like Venus and Mars, they're going to change too. And so that changes over time too. But again, I always say, like, a transit of Mercury going into retrograde, you can look at it in your progress chart, but I mean, that's kind of like a box and a box and a box. You can do it if you want to, but that's what it is called. Oh my God, yes. About this time last year, I was escaping a toxic, abusive friend group and partners. Yes, baby. You didn't, baby, you missed the whole thing. That's okay, though, because you can always watch it again. I'll just rewatch it. Oh, see, you already got it. No problems. Y'all good there. Y'all are totally good there. Okay. What about the north and the south nodes? They shift too. They change too. Over time, they will change too. This is in your progress chart. And you can literally just Google progress chart. And the progress chart. I would suggest you do it in whole sign houses, but you can do it in whatever house system that you want to do it in. That's completely fine. But that changes too. So it will most likely be in whatever the next sign over is. So you might feel, especially if your nodes are already on the cusp of being, close to, sorry, not, I said sign, but I meant to say house. Sorry. If they're already kind of close to that other house, and technically it could be signs too, because it's shifting too. But it could change. Again, if it's at the beginning and you're still relatively young, it'll still be very kind of deep into whatever that natal position was of the north and the south. Okay, so you're 24. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So your sun, if your sun is 0 degrees in, whatever the sign is, you're still going to be in that same sign. But if your sun is, at least 6 or 7 degrees, you're probably going to be in your next sign over by now. But you can look at your progress chart to find that out. So, universe, are there any? Okay. I was like, okay, universe, are there any additional messages? It's like already popped out. 10 of Cups. 10 of Cups, the Empress, and 3 of Pentacles. And this is the second time the 3 of Pentacles is showing up. And it's saying like you want to work hard towards something. This will be a establishing of an identity in one of these areas of your life or just in general. And we have the Emperor in reverse and we have the Empress right side up. Basically, this is a time to nurture this newness of you, this new identity that you have. And then you have the 10 of Cups. Ultimately, you are going to get ultimately, you're going to get to the resolution that you're looking for. Now, I always like to say, like, when I say you get to the resolution, it's not saying that you still won't learn things in life. You're going to still learn things in life in these areas. But the dissonance that you may be feeling now during this period, please believe it will have a resolution by June 3rd. Just a gentle reminder to explain it all over again. Mercury is going into retrograde May 10th, tomorrow, 7:47 Eastern time, and convert that to whatever your local time is. Pacific time, I think it's 4:30, 4 whatever, 4:40 whatever time. And that's when it goes into retrograde. Again, your phone's not going to work the way that you want it to work. Everything else is going to be a little funky. Any kind of electronics, janky. Any type of short-term travel, the car, the bus, trying to communicate in general. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to shut everything down so that you go inside and you work on this. You take inventory. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the esoteric. So this is actually a time where you have amplified ability to do esoteric work. So if you want to do mediumship, clairvoyance, psychic. So mediumship is communicating with our ancestors or those who have already crossed to the other side. Clairvoyance is the clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience is receiving messages about, the future or that which has not happened yet that will happen. So this might be heightened times of deja vu, especially for the Cancer rising, since it's in your 12th house, very dreamy. Pay attention to your dreams because it'll probably come up in there, a lot of strong messages there, but to everybody in general. But being able to see things underneath the veil we couldn't typically see, because we're able to utilize the energetic helpers, our guides, and things like that. And the lanes of communication with that energy, crystal clear right now. You know, you may not even care about communicating with people on the outside because that energy is so strong, depending on what it is that you know, connect with. I mean, you're on a tarot channel, so I assume that you believe in connecting with something. But though that kind of communication, or that lane of communication, crystal clear. And it's also really important to honor that. You know, for example, if you have like an altar, a shrine, ancestor shrine, this is a practice found in many indigenous cultures. Just taking some time to just do a little bit of research of your own indigenous cultures that you come from, and paying respect to those old practices that, you know, all of these, most of these old practices have some type of ancestor worship or ancestor reverence. I feel like is kind of a more modern way of saying it, in which you can go in it and pay respect. And it can also be, you know, people that you knew, like your grandma or your grandpa or your great cousin, or, you know, this is a very strong time to be able to communicate and just say thank you, because these are energies that were people that are here protecting us, guiding us, they no longer are kind of limited in the way we are. You know, we're this energy and we're this spirit, but we're limited by, we got to eat, we got health stuff, we got emotional stuff, we got, you know, the needs, we have all of these needs and things. So we can't see with a clear mind whatever our goal is. But since they've already transitioned over, they can see with a very clear head, and they're always trying to guide us, you know, in a certain direction, here or there. And so this is a very strong time to be able to communicate with them. And so that's actually what I was trying to point out with the esoteric right now. So how are you all? Let me go ahead and check on this. Okay. How are you all? Are you ready? Do you feel like you're ready now? For those who've been here like most of the time, are you ready for this Mercury in retrograde? Yes, I'm so happy to talk about the esoteric. Are you ready for this Mercury in retrograde? You got this, you know? I'm sleepier than usual. I think that makes sense. That makes great sense. Bring it on. And it's kind of like a fun adventure. If you pay attention to the strengths, it's not as challenging as like external. Oh, this not working, that's not working. But on the inside, the energy might be like the universe is sending you a lot of messages, or your relative sent you this message of, you know, giving you encouragement in a way that they never could when they were alive. Or even working with people on a soul level, meaning like, say you have dissonance or you have issues with a certain family member or a certain person or something like that, being able to actually communicate with them on a soul level and not on this human level. By human, I mean like carbon based, like, you know, I am Jet, you know, like that. But the soul of you and them, and being able to see the big picture and understand why you all had to interact and what you all needed, and kind of get to a resolution there in a way that you perhaps would never be able to communicate with them in the physical. So that's a thing too. I stay ready since Mercury is my planet. I know that's right. Very Mercury ruled. Okay. Last message again, 10 of Cups. It's going to be okay. Also, learn how to, this for everybody, learn how to appreciate the tough times. And the tough times, it don't even mean like it got to be that bad. Just like things when it just doesn't go your way or it's difficult, learn how to appreciate them. Because when you learn how to appreciate the tough times and just kind of roll with it and just be like, oh, this sucks, but you know what? I'm going to figure it out, and allow yourself to have feelings and emotions. Like, this is pissing me off. I'm going to be pissed off, but I'm going to come back and finish what I need to finish, blah, 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 blah. When you do get to the other side, it just feels so much better. It just feels like like a deep breath in and an exhale and all of that energy. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this time together. I definitely did enjoy it. I really love these kinds of readings. I hope that it brought a lot of clarity for what's coming up. I love doing these lives because it's just so nice to be able to connect with you and kind of get that feedback of like, okay, this is what's going on with me, or this is what's going on with so-and-so and things like that. I will tell you, doing all them signs, like doing, that's funny because I did all the signs today, but doing like the monthly predictive reads with all the signs, that's tough. Like, it really is. When I did it for the other month, I didn't realize how draining it actually was to do that. And it's funny because I actually used to do that every week on Patreon. I used to do a weekly prediction. I don't even know how. When I look back at it now, I do not even know how I did that. But I can, be very transparent in my own life. I am just trying to simplify things. There are so many techniques that I love to like deep dive and want to share. But I also realize that my time is very finite and there's always new things that I want to work on. So there's just certain things that I can't do. So I really think that this community is probably going to be leaning more heavily towards lives, so that I don't have to do a lot of editing, and, we can kind of just pop up on, and talk about like what's the important things that are happening right now. Like, I think I have one scheduled for next week about the lunar eclipse that's going to be happening. And so that'll be really illuminating too. And then the following week, we're going to get into those June predictions. And that'll be more of like a pick a card style and, stuff like that. So I'm enjoying it. I hope you are enjoying it too. It just makes me so happy. Getting ready for your ASMR now. You're so welcome. Yes, that's happening at 9, Reiki Healing Hope. But I assume most of you all know me from Reiki Healing Hope. Yes, enjoying it as always. I assume that you all know me from Reiki Healing Hope. So this was kind of that space where I felt like there was a lot of messages that I wanted to communicate, but I couldn't really work on the energy healing and communicate the message because I would just be in the middle of and be like, okay, I got to tell this message. So I got my reminder set. I appreciate you. I see this as a space to kind of deep dive into, that kind of stuff. I forgot to tell you all, I do have readings, tarot astrology readings, and there's a link. Yes, there's a link in the description. If you would like a reading from me, you can sign up for that. May is already full, so it would be June. And so that information goes out at the end of the month. It is always in demand, first come, first serve. And it's always fun. It's for those who are kind of into the esoteric stuff, for those who are practitioners or work in the space, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to read somebody. It takes a lot to do an energy healing. And even when I teach, practitioners, energy healing practitioners, Reiki master teachers, and Reiki master practitioners, it is all about kind of like, how do you balance protecting your energy and being able to do this work that you love. But I know for me, whenever I have a client, I start to read them before the session. So I start to read them a couple of days before. And it's always so wild. It's the same thing when I have a Reiki session too. It's all like these random themes start to show up in my life, and I'm like, what is this? And it's all of, really, it's like the guides and the energetic helpers and the universe kind of connecting us in a kind of way to understand what's going on. But it can be a lot. So I definitely don't, I say all that to say I definitely don't push myself. I used to didn't take readings at all during Mercury and retrogrades, because it was really my time to just like work on myself. And that's when I noticed that most people wanted to have a reading. But now I'm just like, you know what? I just take my time. So if you want a reading with me, you can use the link in the description box to sign up. And that would be for June. And June is also my birthday. So that's going to be a fun month too. I got to think about something special to do during that month. Well, everybody, I had a really great time. I'm glad that we got to share this moment together. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're not doing anything in 20 minutes, head on over to a Reiki Healing Hope, and you can listen to a nice healing session before you go to sleep. But until next time, y'all, bye. Bye. See y'all next week, See you next week. Bye.